Yes, hello again, and welcome back once more to Classic Dirt Bike TV here on YouTube, where of course we continue to try and rediscover more of those old school vintage race bikes from way back in the day. Now, we do have some interesting bikes coming up here on CDB TV in the next few weeks, so if you have not already subscribed to my channel, then I do hope you will consider doing that very small thing if these old vintage classic bikes are the things that you like to look at here on YouTube, because as I said, we do have some really rare and very interesting machines coming up very soon here on my channel. So we're going to get things moving once again with another video posting. Now, this particular bike here is a brand new hybrid type of twin shock machine, and now this bike is neither a vintage or a classic race machine, but it's an entirely brand new build, but of course built for twin shock racing. So without any further delay, let's jump straight into this video and take a look at John Fleming's lovely 380 CZ Special. Now, you may remember that I showed you the twin brother of this bike in a recent video here on my YouTube channel, and that particular bike belonged to Scottish rider Archie Baird. So we're now going to take a look at its almost identical twin, which of course belongs to John Fleming. So as I said, these brand new hybrid CZs are not rebuilds of any of the old Czechoslovakian race bikes of the 1970s, because these bikes have a completely new redesigned chassis and an upgraded 380 CZ motor, and of course some very nice trick parts bolted onto it to make the bike a bit more user-friendly on the racetrack. Although essentially the bike is still in keeping with all of the parameters and traditions of a classic race bike, in that it has a period correct style steel frame, a motor based around a 1971 380 CZ, and front and rear suspension that has roughly the same amount of travel that the older Czechoslovakian bikes ran with in the 1970s. And so as we begin with the bike's chassis, now this frame is one of two frames that were built by motorcycle and mountain cycle frame builder Harry Stitt from Northern Ireland. And young Harry Stitt has a very good reputation for building very high quality motorcycle chassis, and although this frame is his own design, Harry did base his initial measurements on the 1968 CZ twin port frame of its day. But both of these frames, as you can see, are just top quality, and when the construction of the chassis were completed, they were neither painted or lacquered. Besides, it would be a crying shame just to hide all of that lovely bronze welding that's used to hold them all together. But when you see the finished article with all of the other bits and pieces of the bike bolted onto it, it still has the look of a factory CZ machine that could quite easily have been raced in the 1970s. Now, the bike's power plant, as I said, is based around a 1971 380 engine, but this motor here has undergone some very nice upgrades and tuning by CZ guru Nori Patti at 3L Race Developments, who is regarded as your go-to guy when you need any rebuild or restoration work done on your old CZ motors. But after all the upgrades and tuning work has been completed on these engines, as you can see, they take on a much different aspect to your standard run-of-the-mill Czechoslovakian 380 power plants. Now, first up, as you can see, a very popular upgrade on these older CZ engines is to machine off every second cooling fin from the barrel. Now, whether this is done to actually reduce the weight of the engine or help the cooling, I'm not exactly sure, but it certainly changes the overall aesthetic looks of these vintage CZ motors. And yet another popular upgrade on these older Czechoslovakian engines is to swap the older shifter mechanism for this newer and much better gear change linkage system, which involves replacing the 3/4 engine casing with a brand new CNC replacement and then fitting these ball end adjusters and linkage bars. Although when all of these upgrades are completed on the gearbox, it makes a huge difference to the actual shifting on these older CZ engines, and it's often said that it makes cog shifting as good as or even better than any Japanese bike. Now, once again, another of the parts that the frame builder Harry Stitt supplies with these new chassis are these upgraded wide foot pegs that Harry calls his bear claws, which offer the rider plenty grip and support for his feet when he's standing up on the pegs. Now, another good upgrade on our CZ is to ditch the old original Jakov carburetor that would have been fitted to this engine back in the day and substitute it for this much better Mikuni unit. Now, this in turn would take its air supply from a foam filter that was housed in this custom-made alloy airbox, which is among many of the bespoke alloy parts on this bike that were made by metal shaping wizard Alan Harrow. Once more, another nice upgraded exhaust expansion chamber on John's CZ, and as far as I'm aware, this is another part of the many hundreds of replacement CZ parts that are now being remanufactured in the Czech Republic, and these again are all made from top quality materials and are more or less just a straight forward bolt-on replacement to the factory originals. Now, there are a few other little tweaks and upgrades that have been done to the internals of this engine, but I was never really furnished with any of their details at the time I took this video. But nevertheless, this CZ power plant still looks very trick nonetheless. But to finish off the engine, a nice laser cut alloy 3L developments chain and sprocket guard was fitted just to add that little bit something extra to this very unique twin-shock engine. And so as we move on to the front end of our CZ, we don't have the stock suspension units fitted from long ago, but instead a pair of newer style Italian-made Marzocchi forks, which are slightly better than the CZ originals and will certainly offer the rider a little bit more in the way of rebound and damping adjustment. But as you can see, the original CZ hubs and brakes have been kept, which is actually no surprise because these older CZ brakes were some of the best motocross stoppers of their day, and that's why these hubs and brakes were not only used on CZ bikes but many other manufacturers' machines as well during the 1970s and early 80s. But the Marzocchi front forks were bolted through these lovely billet alloy CNC machined fork yokes with their additional bar risers, and these parts again are all new remanufactured bits and pieces that came direct from the Czech Republic. Now, as we move to the rear end of our 3L Developments CZ, we have a good quality set of Falcon classic shocks that are fitted, and these shocks again are very good quality and made right here in the UK. And I can personally vouch for these suspension units, as I did have a similar setup to these on my old 440 Micro Twinshocker that I raced back in the day. Now, also at the back of our CZ, it looks like more engineering's been taking place with new CNC machined alloy brake backplate, and both the front and this rear wheel are also replacement alloy Tagasako XL rims. But I have to say that one of the more outstanding features on this CZ bike is the engineering employed in constructing this lovely alloy gas tank. Now, this superb fuel cell is among the many other alloy parts on this bike, including the airbox and side panels that were all made again by Alan Harrow. Now, the tank, it was specifically crafted to fit snugly inside this Harry Stitt chassis, and it's also fitted with a twin fuel feed to the carburetor with a fuel tap on either side of the tank. Now, once more, and as you'd expect, even the bike seat never missed out on a bit of restoration or customising, as an original CZ base and foam was used, although a brand new seat cover was then supplied and fitted by Scott Seats here in Bonnie, Scotland. Now, once more at the business end of our 3L CZ, we have a good set of quality rental handlebars that are bolted onto these lovely alloy bar risers. Now, the grips at the end of the bars are UFO rubber grips, and the twist grip control, I'm assuming that it's a decent gasser throttle twist grip that's been fitted, which is a bit hard to actually make out when it's covered with this M&P rubber outer cover, which I suspect is just to keep dust, dirt and moisture out of the intricate workings of that engine control. So basically what we have here at the end of the day is essentially a completely brand new design of Twinshock Racer, because it has a new tubular steel chassis and it has a motor from around 1971 that's certainly undergone some upgrades and tuning, and of course the bike's front and rear suspension has also been improved over the stock factory items. Although in my personal view it still qualifies as a Twinshock Racer, as it has a chassis based on a 1968 design, an air-cooled two-stroke motor and front and rear suspension travel that is near enough to what these bikes had back in the day. And lastly, of course, old school drum brakes on the front and at the rear. Although, as I did say in previous videos, these types of hybrid Twinshockers are now becoming very typical of the current climate within vintage and Twinshock racing here in Europe, as you do see many riders doing these self-same upgrades on their old Hondas or even Yamahas, but I'm pretty sure that it's all done in the best possible taste and not to try and gain an advantage over the competition, and just to make these older race bikes perform a bit better than when they did back in the day. And so in this final picture here you can see both of these Harry Stitt 3L race development bikes with their proud owners alongside of Archie Baird on the left there, and our featured bikes rider John Fleming on the right. But if you'd like to see our featured John Fleming machine in action here on the track, then I'll leave a link to some racing footage of the bike and rider in action on the track in the video description at the bottom of the page. Well, there you have it. I do hope you enjoyed that walk around John Fleming's 380 3L developments CZ Special. A lovely looking machine, and as I said, beginning to be quite typical of the kind of hybrid twin shock racers that we're now seeing here at classic and vintage race events. So we hope to be out and about again very soon, because we missed out on our big weekend down at Kendal due to my COVID status, but we're all back to normal again, so we're hoping to get out and about once again and cover some more of those classic machines for you here on my channel. But until the next time, everybody, of course, be careful what you're doing out there with those old vintage racers, and I want to see you back here again very soon when we talk about more of this type of vintage iron right here on your #1 and favourite Classic Dirt Bike TV channel.